Good afternoon, I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times. It's Wednesday, October 29th. 6 days to go, I think, or thereabouts. It seems like a million. The governor's race, that was probably the big news today. Mike Ross, the Democratic candidate, had a news conference in which he surrounded himself with very familiar black leaders to urge black voters to get out and vote for Mike Ross. Asa Hutchinson has been expecting this, and yesterday began some radio advertising featuring Torii Hunter, the Pine Bluff native, who's a pro baseball star, to have a strong, familiar face working for him in the black community as well. I think on balance, the Democrat is still going to carry that vote against Torii Hunter. I think the unpleasant thing about Torii Hunter's endorsement was, and I don't think it was an accident at all, his brief statement in support of Asa Hutchinson, the Republican, said that he and Asa shared a view of traditional marriage, that is, against same-sex marriage. Mike Ross, of course, has the same view, but this is a wedge issue for black voters, particularly because there are a lot of black ministers who are strongly against same-sex marriage, and I think this is a cynical ploy by Asa Hutchinson to use homophobia as a way to get votes. It's too bad it's come down to this, but they're pulling out all the stops. It reminds me of the lieutenant governor's race where John Burkhart, the Democrat, has put $2 million of his own money into the race, has run some pretty effective advertising, and clearly has Tim Griffin, the Republican, worried. They're digging up everything they can dig against John Burkhart, from part-time jobs he held as a college student to the sometimes messy business of being a big-time apartment developer, which is what he is. Elsewhere on the political scene, Jason Rapert has been called down again by Blue Hog Report for filing a campaign finance report that makes virtually no mention of the fundraising concert he had last week at UCA featuring Ricky Skaggs. No mention of the money spent on the hall or the ticket sales. And there are a lot of curious questions about how the way he handled this covered up who gave money to the campaign and also who paid for Ricky Skaggs to be there. There'll be more on that in the days ahead. Funny story today, thanks to a really bang-up piece of investigative reporting by Greg Palast. He's a BBC reporter who exposed Tim Griffin's role in George Bush's caging operations in Florida back in 2004. This was an effort to find a way to get people thrown off the voter rolls, such as, for example, military servicemen, particularly poor servicemen, a lot of them black, who were overseas on duty. They'd mail postcards to their house. When they didn't get returned, they'd use that as an excuse to strike them from the voter rolls. Well, there's something like that going on today, again, nationwide, in an internet linked up exchange of information between states that Palast says in a big report for Al Jazeera could result in disqualification of millions of voters, disproportionately on the side of minority voters, Asian, Latino, and black. The interesting thing I dug up is they included in their article a lookup feature where they've obtained some voter lists from 3 states, including Virginia. And you can plug a name in there and see if a person who's on the roll in that state turns up as having been registered in multiple states, perhaps evidence of multiple voting, which of course is voter fraud. Well, guess what? Leslie Rutledge, the Republican candidate for Attorney General in Arkansas, plugs right into the system. Of course, we knew that. She registered in Virginia, then came back to Arkansas and voted absentee. We don't really know for sure if she voted in Virginia because those voter records are sealed, but this voter record system that Republicans think is just the greatest thing, and which some people think is unfairly taking people off the rolls, turned up one of their own on the list, which is a piece of rich irony, if nothing else. I've got some reporting today on Little Rock City Hall, copies of the competing proposals to allow the rideshare service known as Uber to operate in Little Rock. There's still some disagreements about what kind of insurance is going to be supplied. I think the taxi cab companies will be heard from a lot more on this issue and demanding that Uber be made to met driver and car and insurance requirements just like they are. A lot of them will be met. Speaking of insurance, the city is also in negotiations with the Arkansas Municipal League about a new insurance contract to cover city employees. Little Rock City employees have totally paid insurance, which is a heck of a benefit, but anything that required them to pay part of it would essentially be a pay cut. So they seem to be hung with continuing this option. The Municipal League offers a cheaper option than the existing provider, Qual Choice. There's some interesting details there. More news out of the legislature this morning is that Senator Eddie Joe Williams, in a kind of secretive way, has set up a meeting Friday for an outside prison operator from Louisiana to make a presentation to legislators about taking over operation of the Wrightsville Correctional Unit. Bad idea. Our previous experience with outsourcing was not good at all. You get bad service. You don't get much rehabilitation of inmates. The operator makes a lot of money, but the state foregoes its responsibilities, and I don't think it's a good way to operate. Finally, I was amused this morning by a story in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette about its circulation. Like most newspapers in the country, its circulation is dropping. They did claim, however, though without providing full details, that their Sunday circulation is up. It turns out it's up because they're giving it away. They've started some free weekend editions that they pass out in Pulaski County and Northwest Arkansas to stuff with advertising circulars so they can keep their rates up probably for advertising. They don't want to talk about the specific numbers. I'm amused only because back when we went free, which was a good move for the Arkansas Times, a lot of people in the traditional newspaper business said, oh, you don't want to put your advertising in somebody that's free. Well, guess what? They're free too. I'm Max Brantley, and I'll be back tomorrow.